Will buying a house help my immigration process? This is immigration attorney Parviz Malakouti, and that is a question that I get all the time from a lot of my clients or people contacting me, and especially from dreamers. It's a question I wanted to answer in this video. Okay, so first of all, last week I had a consultation with a great young lady and her husband. They are signing with me to go through a consular-based process, a marriage-based immigration process for a dreamer, and they wanted to know if buying a house is something that could help their application. Okay, and the answer is yes, it could potentially help a little bit. Now, I want to explain. If you're a dreamer and you're going through a green card process, you have to go through one of two processes. Either you have to adjust status, okay, which means staying in the United States for your whole process, or you have to start a process which leads to consular processing, which leads to going outside of the United States for a consular interview, a visa interview in another country, usually your home country, okay? Now, owning a house could potentially help in both circumstances, arguably more in the second scenario when somebody is leaving and they need a waiver of inadmissibility. Let me explain, okay? So now, first of all, when we're talking about adjustment of status, there's been a new public charge rule that came into effect in February of this year, February of 2020. And part of that public charge rule requires people to fill out an I-944 form, which asks all these intrusive questions about the financial life of the applicant. And one of the questions in there is to list all of the assets, okay, including potential properties and homes that the applicant owns. The idea is that the more financial resources that the applicant has, the less likely they are to become a public charge. And so therefore having more financial assets could help their scenario. So in that scenario, could purchasing a home help their situation? And my answer is, yeah, it could, okay? But remember, if you have the money and you don't purchase the home, instead of writing the home, you would just list the money as part of the assets, okay? So the equity in the home, okay, yes, it can help, but the equity in that home, that hypothetical home, could also be represented by the finances, by the money that you have. If you just have that money, sitting in the bank, okay, that you would have used for a down payment, okay? So that's one way. Now, I mentioned earlier that I think that the stronger way that it could potentially help somebody's case is if there's somebody who's doing consular processing and they need to file an I-601 or I-601A waiver of inadmissibility. Now, waiver of inadmissibility most commonly for dreamers is used for dreamers who have accrued a period of unlawful presence, over 180 days of unlawful presence in the United States. And in order to be applied for and be granted a waiver of inadmissibility, they need to show, okay, hardship, extreme hardship to a qualifying relative, okay? Qualifying relative for the applicant has to be either their spouse, so their husband and wife, or their parent, their mother or father, okay? And one of the factors that's listed as a potential hardship to a qualifying relative is if the qualifying relative would be forced to sell property as part of leaving the United States. Therefore, if the applicant purchases a home or has a home, and maybe they co-own the home or own the home jointly with their spouse, that's also the qualifying relative, that could be a factor that could work in favor of having the I-601 or I-601A waiver granted for the applicant, right? Because the idea would be that if your spouse, who's the US citizen, owns the home, okay, and they would be forced to sell the home if you don't get a green card, okay, that would cause hardship to them, right? Because nobody wants to be forced to sell their home, maybe sell their home at a loss, maybe sell their home during a down market, who knows, okay? So anyway, those are the two ways that owning a home could potentially help somebody with their immigration process. I went over the one with adjustment of status, and then of course with consular processing, specifically if there's a waiver of inadmissibility involved. That's it for this video. I hope that helps. If you're a dreamer watching this and you want to join my Facebook group, go ahead and join our group. It's DACA Dreamers Moving Forward. We discuss these type of topics, strategies, tips for staying in the United States. And if you need a consultation, if you're ready to speak to a professional right away, email info@malakoutilaw.com or click on the link below in the video description to book a consultation. That's it. Have a great one.